Brother Malcolm said, education is the passport to the future.
It's the real talk. Yo, it's that real talk, an in-depth conversation, breaking down how the past affects our situations. P. Brown, something critical for your conscience, not that daily nonsense, not swayed by the sponsors. Yeah, I'm black, but my perspective not biased. One God, one race, with a message that's timeless. Online with the message for the mass. It's time to unify or stay divided and distracted.
Brother Malcolm said, education is the passport to the future. What's good, my brothers and sisters? I'm Percy Brown Jr. with Real Talk, coming at you all the way live. In about 5 minutes that is, so let's get down to the biz. And on this episode, I want to give a shout out to some of my homeboys. I got about 5 or 6 homies that are on a text thread. We go back and forth talking about issues in the black community, but we also get together and play ball on Saturday mornings. We play this game called 21. There's a lot of trash talking that goes on, and of course, at the end of the day, you know who leaves the gym victorious. Yes, me, P. Brown, and I just had to put that out there. But back to my point. So these brothers that I'm talking about, I grew up with, right? And at some point in time in our adolescence, we were players. We were hustlers and gang affiliated because of the neighborhood that we grew up in. But I'm saying that to say this: these very same brothers have gone on to college, graduated, and are successful in their respective careers. And here's my point about all of that. The most dangerous man in America, or the most dangerous black man in America, is someone who has street savvy, street knowledge, and also academic knowledge. But let me go back to what we were actually going back and forth about, right? So we were engaged in the conversation about Jay-Z's new video, not new video, but new album. But we were also talking about current hip-hop artists out there in terms of the message between Jay-Z's album and the message that's coming out with artists like Future and Migos. So as we were going back and forth about the content, there was one brother that said maybe we should start an investment club of black men where we put money in each month and then eventually venture off into something like real estate or other things like that, right? So throughout that text exchange, there was a brother that sent a YouTube video of a documentary that came out in 1954. And the name of the video is The Secret of Selling the Negro. This is about to trip y'all out. So in 1954, and in conjunction with Johnson Publishing Company, corporate America, with the help of the federal government, released a documentary called The Secret of Selling the Negro. The objective of this documentary was to encourage white business owners to embrace black American consumers. The reason for this was because of black spending power back in 1954. The U.S. Department of Commerce issued a report and basically said that the black community had $15 billion worth of spending power in 1954. So while positive on the surface, the narrator of the documentary encouraged white business owners to let go of mistaken and out-of-date ideas about black Americans and how they live. But the mistaken idea, of course, was racism and Jim Crow policies. So what happened is that between 1934 and 1954, black salaries increased by 4 times. And here's another crazy stat for you. Black children were being better educated because college enrollment had went up by 2,500%. Now, mind you, it was coming from an era of Jim Crow where most blacks couldn't go to college, and then you had the period of slavery before that. But to see growth of enrollment by 2,500% is off the charts and showed that the black community was moving in the right direction. In addition to that, according to the National Association of Real Estate Boards during that time, said that black homeowners paid their mortgages on time more than any other racial group in America, including whites. Black spending in 1954 was off the charts. 51% of ebony readers owned a record player back in 1954. 64% owned a television, and 78% owned an electric refrigerator. Blacks spent more than $3 billion on food alone. And blacks were also the biggest consumer in America for cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries. And here's the kicker about the documentary. It has psychologists that studied and broke down how to sell products to the Negro. The habits that they described about blacks through their research was this: that blacks like to buy name brand. and that blacks like products by name and not generic because they've been sold BS for years. So if you think about Jim Crow and slavery, yes, we were never afforded opportunities for quality products. Blacks buy good quality merchandise because it is a symbol of prestige. Blacks like the admiration and approval of their friends. Let's think about that. And I'm guilty of that, right? I'm always trying to cop the retro Air Jordans. And why do I cop those? So that brothers can be like, oh man, I can't believe you got those retros. I'm also guilty because I drive a real nice Mercedes Benz. And you know what? That might have to be aligned to me just wanting admiration from my friends rather than taking that money and reinvesting it in assets, real hardcore assets. So the other thing that they said in the documentary is that you do not try to sell blacks anything else other than what they ask for. Because if you do that as a white business owner, blacks will believe that you're thinking that we can't pay for it. Man, that's some deep stuff right there, ain't it? Now, the other piece that they talked about is that black consumers are sold on quality and not price. And lastly, the psychologist also said that black families do things together, including shopping. So they buy as a unit, so if you sell to one, you can sell to all. And this is $15 billion, right? So the documentary concluded by giving the business owners the place to advertise to blacks, and it was EBONY magazine. Johnson Publishing Company capitalized on selling ads and boomed in the cosmetic industry because of the black consumer. So go back and look at Johnson Publishing Company, and now you will see how they got rich because they got in bed with corporate America. Did they know what they were doing and what the cost was going to be? I'm not sure, but that's just knowledge for you to know. Johnson Publishing Company also would later allow J.P. Morgan to become a partner in the company. So here we have a black enterprise that has now merged with one of the powerhouses in corporate America. Unfortunately, corporate America has not only capitalized on selling goods to the black consumer at the expense of crushing black entrepreneurship, but has moved in a way where it not only pushes its goods to black Americans, but pushes a lifestyle as well. And this is because corporate America controls the majority of media outlets and the goods that are sold. And if they knew how we thought back in 1954, how much control do they have over our lives now, my brothers and sisters? So here's my thoughts on that. In 1948, big cities in America saw a tremendous increase in black American consumers. San Francisco saw a market increase of 89%, 81% in Chicago, 45% in Houston, and 50% in Philadelphia. That's a lot of money. And that happened because of the great migration of blacks leaving the South for better opportunity in urban areas. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory, but apply the model of The Secret of Selling the Negro to hip-hop music as a medium of advertising to sell drugs, going to prison, and shooting people, and then supplying the product. First heroin in the 60s and 70s, and then cocaine in the 80s and 90s, as well as firearms for the last 20 plus years. And it's just interesting how the message of hip-hop changed during the height of the war on drugs and the crack cocaine epidemic. I'll let you sit with that. But in the words of the late and great Dr. Carter G. Woodson, if you control a man's thinking, you will control his actions. And based on what I've shared, Black America in 1954, despite Jim Crow, was thriving economically, but our focus was not on spending in a way that benefited the ongoing upliftment of our communities and people. This has got to change, my brothers and sisters. Let's get out of this matrix that we are in and realize our full potential as a people. And one last thing to the people in power in the city of Madison and Dane County. I gave you game, right? I talked about these brothers that not only have academic knowledge, but are also street savvy as well. If you want to deal with the racial disparities, if you want to deal with the increase in crime and the increase in gun violence, here's an idea for you. Why don't you go ahead and invest in those low-income black communities, buy those properties from those property managers, and then give it to an investment organization like me and my brothers in terms of what we're trying to do, because you know what? We got the business side, but we also got the street side. And if you give us control of our neighborhoods, first by with the property, we can take that, turn those profits, put it back into the community, give our kids that live in those communities jobs in terms of upkeep of the residences that they live in. We can create community-controlled gardens where we're creating a different type of dynamic as far as nutrition. food, shelter, and then the last is clothing. If we can provide those three basic things for our people, we can change racial disparities and the things that we see in our community, but the power structure has to be willing to give the power to the most dangerous person in America, and that's the black man that's educated academically and educated in the streets. And that's all I've got for you, my brothers and sisters. Until next time, peace out, Godspeed to the change we want to see, and peace to the kingdom of Judah and ancient Kemet.
Real Talk is a subsidiary of Critical Consciousness LLC, a company that helps school systems and companies innovate with a focus on diversity and inclusion. Real Talk is brought to you in part by Madison 365, executive producer of Real Talk, Terrence Jackson, CEO of Up Next Marketing Incorporated. Intro song performed by Keon Andre of Cadence Music Group and produced by Greg Dobie of Unideck Media Group. Follow Percy Brown at www.percybrown.org or on Facebook and Twitter at Percy Brown Jr.